Welcome to Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. I'm Julia Elliott-Brown, the founder and CEO of Enter the Arena. I'm a serial entrepreneur and an expert in raising investment and business growth. Our mission at Enter the Arena is to empower female founders to fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business with investment expertise and business coaching. Here we share the stories of inspirational female founders who've raised investment to inspire you to do the same. You'll hear their honest accounts of what it was really like to secure funding, the highs, the lows, and the challenges they experienced on the journey. And along the way, we'll discuss top tips for how you can be successful too. My guests today are Kristina Komlosiova and Stephanie Johnson, the founders of Pollen Grace, the natural food company with a delicious range of home-cooked ready meals and snacks that are free from gluten, wheat and dairy. Everything the girls make is plant-based, fresh, ready to eat and all made from natural ingredients. The business has been going for a few years now, and Pollen Grace are already stocked in places like Whole Foods, the Co-op, Waitrose, Planet Organic, Selfridges and Harrods, as well as through Compass, the largest contract food services business in the world. Kristina and Stephanie are working to become the most trusted healthy food brand in the UK and change the way the nation eats for the better. And in spring 2019, they raised just over 600,000 in equity finance to help them on the way to achieving that mission. So let's meet Chris and Stephanie and hear all about their fundraising story. Hi guys.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Hi, thank you for having us.
And we're in the world of the coronavirus lockdown, so everybody's in separate rooms, fully socially distancing, which is good to see. I hope you're both managing okay with everything.
Yes, it's the longest time. We were actually just saying yesterday since that we've ever been apart since we met. Chris and I have been working together since before Pollen and Grace days, so about 8 years now. So this is the longest we've been apart.
Wow. Well, tell us more about the story of how you two met. Then I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
I think we met back in, was it 20?
Must have been about 2013. Yeah.
And we were colleagues at a previous job, so we were both event managers in London, organizing kind of business to business conferences and consumer events in the coffee and food industry, so still very much to do with food, which we both love, and we were just the dream team from day one. We would always work on a project together and look after different parts of the same event, and essentially deliver the whole thing together. Without really even needing to properly communicate. It just kind of, we have this weird way of communicating by osmosis.
Vibes.
So we've known each other for many, many years now.
Wow. Okay, so you work together.
Yeah.
And so tell us about what happened then in terms of coming up with the whole idea for Pollen and Grace.
So I guess kind of Pollen and Grace came from very humble beginnings. So back when we were colleagues working in events, I unfortunately discovered I had a whole host of food intolerances. And as a massive foodie, I'm originally from Australia, and back in Australia, I actually trained as a chef. Kind of very much kind of fine dining, French cuisine, bread, butter, all those wonderful things. So discovering that all of a sudden I couldn't eat most of those ingredients, I found very tough. So kind of eating out at restaurants was out for me, but kind of more importantly, kind of on a day-to-day basis, I realized that it was almost impossible for me to pick up anything to eat on the go. It was full of kind of wheat and gluten and dairy, but also loads of stabilizers and preservatives, and just stuff I didn't want to put in my body. And most importantly to me, it all tasted terrible. And all the lovely, wonderful things I would have liked to have eaten, I couldn't. So essentially I set about to retrain myself how to cook with all these kind of new and novel ingredients at the time. So rewinding, say, 6.5 years ago, quinoa and chia seeds were not something that you would have come across into your day-to-day life. albeit now you can pick them up in any local supermarket. It just wasn't that way back then. And I started bringing in all of my meals into the office. They very much look like what you would find in our pollen kitchen these days. And it was literally from people in the office taking interest in what I was bringing in that the idea was born. And thought, well, gosh, if people here want to pay me to make them a lunch, then maybe there's other people out there as well. And the idea was born from there.
Oh, that's fantastic. So did you just decide there and then to set this up as a business and do that together?
So it was a very, I guess it was probably about 6-9 months from kind of initial, there could be a business idea here, to first lunch delivered. So all that planning was done whilst kind of our employment. So kind of built the website, kind of came up with the business concept and the model. But we did start from very, very small beginnings. So we literally started with a website, a bike, and we were cooking in my kitchen at home. So yeah.
Okay. So was the start of the business about delivering those kind of meals to people in their offices? Is that kind of where it started?
Exactly. So to be honest, it feels like with coronavirus, we've gone full circle now, being that we're delivering direct to people's homes now. But yes, we started as we could. We didn't have any funding behind us back then. We were self-funded actually for the first year and a half of the business. So
this was also before the boom of Deliveroo and Uber Eats. So the Deliveroo wasn't as big as it is right now. So this we felt like, oh, this is a great idea, delivering straight to where people are. Very quickly.
I was going to say, did you need much funding to get it off the ground? I know you were self-funded at the beginning. Did you need to put much in?
No, so that's essentially why we went for that. I think had we had loads of cash, we would have probably started a cafe or kind of a food to go store. Kind of very glad that we didn't end up going down that route. Definitely not the right route for us. But we essentially chose a model that was the lowest barrier to entry for us getting started with no cash. Essentially what we needed was funds to build the website, funds to buy the ingredients, and packaging. And that was it. We did everything on a shoestring. Kind of our first logo was designed on 99 Designs. Our branding was literally stickers from printed.com. It was
Yeah, it just shows you know, in your kind of industry, you don't have to have huge amounts of capital to get started, which is great.
No, exactly. And then the rest was to fund us until we could pay ourselves, which moral of the story is it always takes longer than
So tell us about that beginning part of the journey. So you put some of your own funds in, you got your website, you produced a range of meals that you were delivering.
Yeah, quit our jobs.
So you quit your jobs. Wow.
Yes.
Okay. And so when did you get to the point where you thought, right, we're probably going to need some more funding here to take this to the next level?
It was a year and a half in. So
so at that point we were already, we've transitioned from being just a boutique lunch delivery. We started working with the likes of Planet Organic and Harrods and Selfridges, and we're basically slowly phasing out from the lunch delivery model. And we realized that, okay, if we really want to take it to the next level and start supplying to some of the biggest supermarkets, we will need a proper kitchen, and we will need a proper setup. So at that point, we were not working from Steph's kitchen anymore. We were working from our first kind of official kitchen, which was at the back of an army barrack in Clapham Junction. So we were basically just renting out a tiny little shoebox of a kitchen from the army guys. And from there, we managed to scale up to quite considerable business, actually. But we did realize that if we wanted to do anything bigger, we would need proper cash behind us.
Essentially, at that point, we were stocking our kind of retail range of food to go products into, I'd say, almost all of the specialty and boutique specialty supermarkets and boutique fitness studios in London. So we kind of had hit the ceiling on where we could expand into without then going after the bigger retailers like Ocado, and the other bigger supermarkets. And in order to do that, we did need some real infrastructure, and that was far beyond kind of what we were able to achieve ourselves.
Yeah. But you actually got a really, really long way on your own steam, didn't you? I mean, that's
It's actually amazing
progress.
when you look back. I don't know how we did it.
Yeah.
I think sheer determination, and we had an amazing team behind us. None of us were getting paid alone. We had a lot of people that were working with us just because they believed in what we were doing. And the nice thing is a lot of them are still with us now and have really grown with the brand and grown their careers with us too.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And do you think also there was an element of timing in that you just hit it at the right time with a product that people were starting to really want?
Definitely. We started as I guess wellness was kind of just kind of a little embryo, and it was when we started it was a huge risk actually, because what we were entering into was such a small niche that it wasn't even a niche. Now kind of starting a healthy food business kind of makes sense, whereas back then people kind of looked at us like we were crazy, risking our kind of careers and security to make some salads.
But just an interesting question. Did you always, even back in those early days, have this vision that you would build a business that you would scale? Or did that kind of realization that you could scale it happen as you went along?
No, we actually always started with very big vision. Although I think it's only something that we've kind of been able to come to terms with as we've taken kind of various steps along the road. So I guess that's why the company is called Pollen Grace. We wanted a name. It stands for our business values, and we knew what we wanted the big vision to represent, and we wanted a name and a brand that could come on a big journey with us. However, you have to start somewhere, and I think we really kind of, I guess, honored that and kind of embraced starting small and taking it kind of step by step and kind of working out that path as we went along. Kind of never originally thought that would be having a range of retail products that we stocked into supermarkets. That kind of found us. But also I think that kind of year and a half where we were self-funded was really that kind of development phase where we really got to find our feet and work out what we wanted that big long-term vision to be. But we always knew we wanted it to be big.
Yeah, exciting. So you got to the realization that you needed to put some rocket fuel into this business to take it to the next level.
Yes.
Particularly focus on the bigger supermarkets and that kind of thing. So what tell us about the first funding round that you did. Okay. How did it go? Who did you get it from? How much did you raise?
So at this point, neither Chris or I had any experience in raising funds or the world of investment. We had some great kind of friends that we could ask advice from and kind of get the lay of the land of how this whole investment thing worked. And what we decided was that we needed to raise enough funds, which was a couple of £100,000, so that we could build our own kitchen and get the right accreditation that we needed to be able to then start to supply to the bigger supermarkets. And we went about that quite organically. We worked out that we needed an investment deck. Thankfully, we already had our financial model. We started working with a finance director very early on when we were still cooking from my kitchen at home. So from day one, we've always had our finances in check. So that part of it, I think, helped a lot because I think kind of that can sometimes be the trickiest part, is getting all your finances in check for an investment round, because it is such an important part. As I'm taking the word out of Chris's mouth here, that's what she'd normally say.
It's the single most important part that you need as a business to actually be able to talk to investors and attract investment.
I think that's absolutely right. And I see most entrepreneurs shying away from that and leaving that to the last minute. But when you've got a really, I don't know whether you would agree on this, Chris, but when you've got a really robust and sophisticated financial model, it's not just about using it to raise investment. It's actually the bedrock of running your business. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, completely, 100%. That's basically, if you don't know the finances of your business, I don't think you actually know your business, and you don't really know what you're doing and how you're going to progress it to the next level.
But are either of you sort of from a financial background?
Oh, no.
Neither of us come from a finance background or a food manufacturing background. So everything, we both come from an events background. So what that taught us was to be really organized. But otherwise, no, we've learned it as we've gone.
With the finance thing being so important, which I totally agree with, how did you go about solving that sort of early on, thinking, right, we need some help with the finance?
Like Steph said, we had a virtual update from pretty much day one. So he set up everything for us in terms of our decks and management accounts and how we report everything. And then we actually just learned from him along the way. I remember the very first time when I was talking to him, he was showing me his spreadsheets on the screen, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I can't follow anything. I don't
He's an
understand."
Excel wizard.
Now we are on a level where we can create our forecast ourselves. We can pretty much do anything, and he just checks on it. So it was very much a lot of education and a huge learning curve for both of us.
Yeah.
But you have to make Excel your friend, don't you? And I think once you become financially literate, it's so empowering.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you feel like when you go into meetings and you know your numbers, you can't go wrong. Like that, you can't get caught out. I feel like. Every time we're pitching, every time we go to an investor meeting, those are the questions that you just have to nail. Otherwise, people.
I think this question about finance and when you're a startup, particularly the early stage, going out for your first investment round, a lot of entrepreneurs are like, well, how do I do this finance thing? How do I find the resource? My view is it's not about finding a big sort of financial agency. It's not about also having a full-time finance person. It's about having somebody who works for you part-time or virtually, but somebody who doesn't make you feel like you don't, like they're pulling the wool over your eyes, that can actually explain it to you in layman's terms.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So our FD is still working with us to this day, and he's still virtual and he's still part-time, but like I said, he set up really elaborate and complex systems for us, but he explained everything to us, and we learned so much from him, and that's been absolutely incredible. So yeah, definitely would highly recommend working with someone that knows what they're doing, but also what is willing to teach you, essentially, rather than just be the skilled one and try to kind of push you away from.
Because at the end of the day, you're the one that's got to sit in front of investors and talk them
and own it. Yeah.
You've got to own it. Can't outsource that bit, unfortunately.
No.
Okay, so you've got your financial model, you developed a pitch deck.
We essentially went out to our network, so our LinkedIn contacts, everyone that we'd ever met through our careers, kind of introduced the business, told them what we were doing, told them that we were raising kind of first kind of seed round of funds. So we started to have kind of lots of different meetings, and to be honest, it was a real learning curve for us, kind of getting used to kind of going in and pitching and kind of explain the business in a way that we kind of had never done before. But and we were kind of halfway through that round, kind of progressing it, and then we got an email from
our lead
investor, exactly, who's also now our chairman, saying that he'd come across us online and was looking to make an investment in the healthy food space, and would we be interested in meeting? And to be honest, we just thought it was spam at the time, because it was just a really unusual email to get, and formatting. He had dictated the email, so it was, some big text, some small text. So it did look like it maybe could have come from somewhere in Africa. But
here's my bank account details, and send me the money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think it'd been a particularly bad day, and we responded, and it turns out he was a real person, and we met him, and that was the round done.
Wow. Okay, so this is fascinating. Like, again, holy grail, that somebody just finds you and contacts you. But do you know any more about the kind of process that he went through, and but was it your website that he saw? Was it the product that he saw? What was it that made him come to you?
It was a combination of everything. So yes, he would always say it's the visuals of the brand. And he was naturally, he was very interested in the healthy food space. So he comes from food background. His whole career was around food. So he knew that the healthy food space was the next big thing about to boom in the UK. So he was looking particularly at healthy food businesses in London. And I think we were shortlisted along 3 other.
Yeah.
But it was the visuals of the brand that he thought it was the strongest.
And
essentially, he did some press, or he just discovered your website? Or?
No, I think he'd just done some research. So no, back then we definitely didn't have kind of really any press. We didn't have a PR agency. We didn't have any of those things. I was still cooking in the kitchen and Chris was still organizing all of the deliveries ourselves. So we were not spending a huge amount of time on that business. Kind of social media was our only avenue to kind of speak to the world. But essentially, I think the thing that sealed the deal for him was coming to see our very makeshift production facility, knowing we were supplying to the likes of Harrods and Selfridges, and seeing kind of the level, kind of, for example, we basically 10x our growth from year 1 to year 2, from an army barrack kitchen, which had spilled out into the mess hall, the dining hall, and kind of coming from kind of big factory world. I think he was probably mildly horrified at our makeshift setup, but also really impressed that we'd managed to pull that off. And I think he thought, well, if we could pull that off, then we can pull anything off.
I think it was seeing the dedication to the cause and us making things happen from literally
nothing.
There's a couple of interesting points there, I think. One is about how you present yourself to the world is so important. And, you know, when you're doing a fundraising round, you've got to look at everything from, is my website looking good enough? Is my LinkedIn profile looking good enough? Is my social media looking good enough? Because investors will look at all of those kind of pieces of communication that you put out to the world and make judgment calls on whether they want to call you or not. So you have to look at the whole piece, don't you? It's really interesting.
Very, very much. And LinkedIn is a very important one within that mix as well.
I think so. Very, very important tool. And then this piece about how you got him to come to see your production facility. And that to me is all about kind of showing investors, not just telling them, but showing them and inviting them into your world. Yeah. It's a really important part of the process, isn't it? So not necessarily going to meet them for a coffee somewhere else, but saying, hey, come and see what it's really like.
Really, yes. To be honest, we've actually been very open every single time during every round. So even during a crowdfunding round, which came a little bit later on, quite a large amount of people came actually down to see the production facility that we have now in Vauxhall, and people kind of want to see the reality and whether it's actually all real. So when they see that, this is how we operate. This is the size of the team now.
They want to see. They want to know the people that are there. You know, what are they? Are they engaged? Are they committed to the brand? Are they as passionate as you are? All of that stuff is part of the judgment call that people make, and quite hard to get that across sometimes in a 2-dimensional pitch deck.
Yes. Pitch deck is just there to open the door.
Exactly. So you've got this first chunk of money from your wonderful lead investor. So what happened next then? Tell us about the next phase of your journey.
So he obviously is very well connected. So he introduced us to a group of other angels that kind of came on board between 2016 and 2018. So we had a smaller top-up rounds, basically just to get the production side up to speed, allow us to really scale up and invest a little bit into sales and marketing, but not a huge amount.
It was really, for us, those next few years was about professionalizing the business. But building our current factory was kind of a really big part of it, but also moving into those bigger retailers. So it took us about a year to set the production facility up. We were still running at the same time, but to go after the various bits of accreditation. And then kind of a year later, we started working with Ocado and Compass Group and Whole Foods, and then the year after that it was Co-op. So
there was a lot of money into infrastructure and growing the team, professionalizing the team.
That's where a food business costs a lot of money. So at the start it was easy to start, but to scale it, it's expensive.
And your lead investor, I mean, you say he comes from the industry, so lots of experience, and he obviously helped you with securing other investors.
Yes.
And was he one of those angel investors that also kind of got a bit more involved in the business, or quite hands off?
We still hear from him every week. We would meet him
every day.
So every day.
Especially now during these times, we pretty much catch up on a daily basis, and he's very much involved. So he comes from the finance background of the food industry, so he's very much involved in the financial part of financial modeling, making sure that the margins are where they need to be, and he's been very, very helpful. So quite hands-on, but also hands-off where we've had enough freedom to take the brand where we wanted to take it, and always kind of creative direction was always in our hands. So that's been brilliant.
He sounds amazing. Could we clone him?
You'll have to hear that.
Okay, so he's brought other people in for you. You're now moving the business forward quite significantly. You're professionalizing it, and then so the next funding round you did, was that then your crowdfund that you did?
Yes, exactly. So that was everything else was kind of smaller dribs and drabs, kind of top up rounds just to launch a new client, to launch a new product range, etc. And then it was, I guess, kind of over Christmas of it must have been 2018. Yeah, Christmas of 2018, where kind of realized that we'd spent a couple of years kind of building a really strong, robust business, but what we hadn't done was really kind of gone out to market and kind of let the world know we were here. So that was why we decided to go down the crowdfunding route as the next step, because
so marketing more than anything.
Exactly. We knew that we had Co-op that we were launching, which was a huge scale up for us, and that we'd need to make some infrastructural investments. But we also knew that we needed to start investing into sales and marketing as a brand. And we thought kind of what better way to do it than kind of use the crowdfunding platform to kind of spread the message. And also over the years, we built up a really, really strong, loyal brand following. And it was kind of the perfect opportunity for us to kind of harness that kind of collective and get everyone kind of on board.
Reconnect with our customers all around the country, basically. So that was really, really the best part of crowdfunding. I think we'll both say the same thing.
And also, I imagine quite a reasonably affluent customer database you're working with.
Yes, especially from the earlier days of our delivery, we were definitely seen as a more kind of premium brand. So we definitely had more affluent following. Now it's becoming much more mainstream, also with the growth of veganism and kind of flexitarian diet. It's just so accessible and so to many more people. But yeah, I would say
I think it was testament to our campaign. We ended up with for the amount we raised, we ended up with a lot of investors. So we raised about 600. We ended up with 615 individual investors, which was huge, and a lot of that came from our customer base as well. Some of which had been ordering our lunches when we were still cycling them around on a bike.
And also, I mean, you said that at the beginning when you were thinking about raising investment the first time, you'd already gone out to your whole network. So they must have been quite primed as well. All those people that were in your black book that you knew. Familiar with business.
Yes. I would love to say we do it better than we had. I think there's definitely kind of improvements we could have made in terms of being more strategic and planned in kind of dropping regular communications. But I'd say we kind of did just naturally maintain quite a good network and base. But I think that's probably a really important thing to consider, and something that I know that we can always improve on is keeping regular communication and just keeping in touch with people in between those rounds.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to say that it was actually during the crowdfunding campaign when we realized how important LinkedIn is. That really became our kind of platform, kind of connecting with our personal audiences and really harnessing those contacts and sharing the news. Yeah. So now LinkedIn is really it's a number one tool really when we're kind of personally wanting to say anything. We both don't really use any other social media like Instagram or Facebook, but yeah, we're quite vocal on LinkedIn when talking about Pollen Grace and our personal journeys.
That's really interesting. Have you connected with all of your investors on LinkedIn so that you've built that database out?
A large amount of them, yes.
Yeah.
Do you, out of interest, do you? I mean, obviously you'll be posting on LinkedIn, but do you also use direct messaging en masse to communicate with your network?
No, we haven't used that yet. It's more kind of just posting updates about what Pollen Grace is doing, what we're doing personally within Pollen. But no, we're not doing really any direct messaging.
For our first round, what we did was we had everyone's email addresses that were on all of our LinkedIn contacts, because this was I guess before the days where you could just download a contact list from LinkedIn. And we did send out individual communication to hundreds and hundreds of people on our LinkedIn. And it was a great place to start with leads. So yeah, I know it's not quite the same way that you can do it now, but yeah, direct messaging and reaching out, there's a lot that can come from it.
That's really good to know. Fantastic. So let's talk about your crowdfunding campaign in a bit more detail then. So how long did it take you to get ready to go live? Really?
So this is where we tell you what not to do. Yes. So it was a complete whirlwind for us, and probably one of the most stressful parts of the last 5.5 years. We planned it very quickly. Thankfully, we already we always have our financial model ready, and we have that's a really big chunk of it, is getting finances ready and building a business plan for investment. So thankfully we already had that. Essentially we got ready in, it was 5 weeks, from deciding to launch. And that was including kind of pitch deck, video, building out the whole campaign, the whole marketing strategy. So
finding your contacts, so basically to build your kind of list of contacts that you will go out to for the pre-registration. So I don't know if you and your listeners are aware how crowdfunding actually works.
Let's talk about the pre-registration phase. I think it is important that people understand how that bit works.
So before the campaign actually goes live to the public, there is a short amount of time where people can pre-register their interest, and then the campaign opens only to those pre-registered individuals. So basically our job was to create a list of contacts and basically funnel them through to the pre-registration page, make sure that they put their contact details in there and officially register their interest to invest in the business. And then when we felt comfortable enough that we have enough kind of pledged funds in there, we opened in the private mode, where basically people are completing the pledges, and so actually really completing and confirming their investment. That's I think the private mode, we had it open only for 7 days, didn't we?
Yes, I think it's normally about a week that you can kind of have it open for, and that is I guess such an important time, because the percentage of funding that you launch with is so important, and I think it changes as the years go on. So kind of we launched with 50% funded. However, these days that's even a little bit light. Most people will launch with 70 or 80% funded, but we organized it in just such a short period of time that we had only 50% of the funds confirmed. So we when you look at definitely felt the pressure.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? I mean, I remember the first crowdfunding round I ever did, I think we must have launched with maybe 30%, which was the rule of thumb then. My God, I mean, it was like, hold on, with terror, to get through this roller coaster ride.
Completely.
The amount of times you can refresh a page.
Like, do you remember, I don't know if you remember, because you're probably too young, but it's like the old days when Blue Peter used to do charity appeals, and the thermometer of how much they'd raised would go up every week. I'm excited to reveal. But it's like every second you're looking kind of, has anyone else invested?
First thing you do in the morning when you wake up.
But that bit, the pre-registration phase, I want to talk about the metrics on this, which I think are quite interesting. So do you remember what amount you had pre-pledged, and then thinking, what's the reality of what we think will actually come in? Do you remember that piece?
I don't know, Steph, if you remember exactly the figures, but I think we were both very optimistic, because we had a lot of pledges, and we felt like, oh wow, great, the campaign is done. And then so we crowdfunded it with Cedars, and we were just chatting with them, and they told us that I think the conversion rate on pre-registration is actually really low,
like maybe 10%.
I
think we ended up with about 30%,
20%.
I think it was somewhere about 20%.
But I agree with you. I think, well, most entrepreneurs, we're all super optimistic people. No, we've got this amount of pre-pledged. Of course they're all going to come in and invest. And actually it is shocking how it's such a low conversion rate from people who say that to actually do it.
We felt like, oh, we've got this, we can launch now, and Cedars were like, oh no, like, the conversion rate is really low. we need more in the pre-registration. And we didn't believe them at the time. And then when we actually opened in the private mode, we're like, oh, okay, what's happening? Where's all the money? So that's when you need to start, pick up the phone and call people and say, what's up?
And that's a good point you made there about picking up the phone. If you can collect people's phone numbers when you're doing the pre-registration phase, that's really powerful, because not many people do pick up the phone these days. If you do it, you can have a lot of success and have a great conversation with someone.
Yeah.
Too.
So most of the contacts we had in our pre-registration, we actually knew them personally. So it wasn't too difficult to actually follow up. But I think we quickly realized that people sometimes just pledge because they're interested in the campaign, want to see how it's going. And they go at a higher range, but then they will actually invest much less. So it was definitely a learning curve. I think looking back at it, we would definitely extend the pre-registration further and make sure that we launch higher than 50%, because it was quite stressful, but also just looking at like the most successful and striking campaigns that always launch with pretty much like fully funded. That's when you really gain the momentum, and then it really becomes exciting. A really short, snappy campaign that achieves the target very quickly, and then goes into funding within a week.
And I think it took us I think it was about 3 weeks to reach 100% after we kind of went into public mode. So it was still quite quick, and we did overfund as well. So by what about kind of 30 or 40%, I think.
But I think we were both imagining that we will go into overfunding within a week and launch the first campaign within 2 weeks of opening. That wasn't happening. We were like, oh dear, what are we doing?
Yeah, we still closed the campaign early, but I think that's also a great example of our optimism. Like, oh yeah, we can do it in a quarter of the time that it actually takes to do. And we might have done it in half, but
how did you manage your stress through all of that?
Oh my goodness. Look, as best as you can. It completely took over our lives for 3 months. Completely took over our lives. Kind of something, just a little thing that you don't think about is obviously once the campaign is live, people are contacting you to request to look at your financials, to look at the investment deck. So you're getting hundreds of people contacting you every day, and most of the time that's out of work hours. So evenings were spent just kind of on the computer, on the phone, responding to every single inquiry to make sure that you kind of got back to people as quickly as possible, because obviously you want them to look at it as right then and there and invest as soon as they can. So it was all consuming. Evenings, weekends were just glued to that screen, refreshing and responding to people.
And also lots of potential investors will be obviously asking questions about the business and the plans. So and some of those questions are quite tricky to answer, so not always super comfortable. So it was definitely it completely took over our lives, basically.
Can I ask you, when you finally closed the round, or whether it was when you hit your target or when you closed the round, did you stop and celebrate?
I don't think we did.
We didn't, because when we closed the campaign, I think we were a couple of months away from actually launching into co-op.
I think it was about 6 weeks away from one. So we were really tight on time.
It was a very fast gear shift where we literally call, money, done, co-op next, and let's go.
Classic entrepreneurial behavior. Yeah. We never stopped to celebrate us.
No.
I think we definitely high-fived, and we definitely had a little celebration. I think we're both like, okay, that's ticked. We have to move on to the next big one. And co-op was obviously, it was a huge scale up. So doubling production from one day to the next, it was definitely something that we were like, okay, we need to get this right. We can't fail.
So I wanted to also ask you about another bit of investment that you got post your crowdfunding campaign from a family office.
Yes.
Which is another completely different type of investor.
Yes.
And I think it would be great if you can just talk a little bit about what a family office is and how you found them and what it's like working with them, which is very different from working with an angel investor, very different from working with crowdfunding investors.
Yes, so family office funds is probably the most professional money that we've had into the business. Otherwise, it has just been angels and crowdfunding. I guess family offices are probably a little bit more approachable than I guess the next is step up in terms of level of investment, which would be a venture capitalist, a VC, and then after that you've got your big PE funds. So family office, to be honest, has been very similar for us to working with our angel investors, because our angel investors are quite professional in investment. The due diligence that we've done with them and the board structures we have in place are the same as if we probably had a VC. So we haven't noticed a huge difference.
So the due diligence we had to do for our very first investor was actually very thorough and it was conducted in a very professional way. So we used a lot of that information and that structure for the due diligence for seeders, for the crowdfund, and then that was also used for the family office. The only difference was that for the family office, so they have like an investment committee. They obviously need to, so all the members are voting on each investment. So we were part of a kind of virtual meeting, and we essentially pitched to the full committee and answered all the questions. But it was a really lovely and straightforward process. So
there were a lot of additional questions. There were pages and pages of questions and additional due diligence. So I think that's the main difference is the level of due diligence and the need to be able to answer all the questions, a lot of which are financial about your business. But that is thankfully something that we're quite comfortable with.
And did you go out to find them, or did they find you this time?
They actually found us as well through the crowdfunding campaign. So to be honest, we probably would have had them involved in the crowdfunding campaign, but we had such a tight deadline with launching into co-op, and we had some kind of very large pieces of equipment that we needed to buy and have in the kitchen for the scale up. So we kind of just had to close the crowdfunding campaign and move ahead so that we'd be ready in time for co-op. And then it was about 6 weeks later that Omakase, our family office, came on board.
But it's another interesting benefit of crowdfunding, and that it raises your profile in the whole investment community, doesn't it? So
hugely, so valuable.
People start to come out of the woodwork without you actually actively having to go out and see them.
And the assets stay there. So I think one of the first things that you find on Google when you Google Pollen Grace will still be our campaign, our video. So it's still very, very much there and really introduces the brand in a nice way. So
amazing job. So let's talk about what's next, and I'm also intrigued to know kind of what does the current situation we're in with lockdown, and who knows what's going to happen with food and service industry and the economy. How's that all affecting you, and what does that make you think differently about your strategy and particularly your fundraising strategy?
Oh gosh, where do we start?
Is that really hard?
So right now there is not a huge amount of market. Well, yeah, there isn't a market for investment, especially kind of within our space. So I think for investment during kind of this period, it's definitely just about kind of holding tight and waiting for the market to recover.
In terms of how we've been affected, so obviously the food industry, certain parts of it are booming, and then there are certain parts that are not. We are unfortunately of that latter part. So the buying behavior has changed dramatically. People don't really pop into their local supermarket to buy ready meals or food to go, effectively where we normally go. So we've definitely seen quite a big decline in our revenue.
Especially due to store closures.
Loss of footfall, but also we do a big chunk of our work is with Compass and Elio, so contract catering. So that part at the moment is completely on hold. So obviously for us it was super important to act quickly and just realizing that our customers are still there. They still want to buy us, but they can't really find us anywhere or access us easily. So basically go back to our roots and offer next day delivery to London homes. Was what we decided to do, and we launched our platform. 6 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was basically it was a few days after lockdown, so we acted very quickly.
I like to see that. That's good. And are your existing investors being fully supportive? Are you, I mean, obviously this will impact your runway. Do you feel that they've got your back through this?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So on both fronts. So obviously we're exploring all the options in terms of what support we can get from the government, what initiatives are out there that we can make use of. But also we will be leaning on heavily on our current shareholders to support us through this time.
Yeah. It's difficult times, isn't it? But I mean, with your business, it's a kind of trend that I imagine will only pick up and get even bigger once this is all over.
Definitely, and we have a big launch into Tesco as soon as the world goes back to normal and people are able to leave their houses again. So fingers crossed for July, you'll also be able to find us in Tesco, which is a great thing to have to look forward to as a business post COVID.
Massive. And do you see international expansion on the horizon?
Definitely.
Yes, it's part of our big dream. Not this year, maybe next year.
Super exciting.
This year it's all about the UK.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey. It's been very, very interesting. And I wish you all the best for the rest of 2020. I hope that things look up for you. But what a great pivot you're doing. And I'm glad you're still taking all your healthy food to London. It's great.
Thank you so much. And thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for following Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. This content is all provided to you for free, so if you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe so you never miss another one. Enter the Arena has helped hundreds of female founders fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business. Our first-hand experience, expert guidance, and proven programs help female founders unleash the Wonder Woman inside. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to www.enterthearena.co.uk. I'm Julia Elliott Brown, and I look forward to talking with you soon.